Hey folks, so we're going to talk about a potentially bit of a touchy topic today, the state of birth rates. It's touchy because of various reasons. It's a very polarized topic, very polarizing. People have very strong opinions on that, on both the ends of the spectrum. Some people believe that this is probably one of the top existential risks that our species faces. And also, it's touchy because I'm not a woman. Evidently, if I was, it'd be easy to broach this topic, speaking from a place of authority. But we'll try to do the best we can. Now, to be clear, this was not one of those mandates, early Elinity mandates that, this is what we want to fix with Elinity. It came way down, it was way often afterthoughts, I think 12 months, 15 months down the line, when we started building the Elinity scaffolding. But then we started realizing that this birth rate, the numbers around birth rates, projections and all of that is not painting a rosy picture. And also, we were able to, one of our strong theses is that this is more of a meaning problem rather than a demographic problem, rather than, a cost of living problem and some of the other things that people have been saying. So, we've got to talk about some of those topics in this conversation. Now, once we determined birth rates to be one of the vectors, one of the things that we would want to move the needle on, it also had the added bonus, you can call it that. But up until then, it was our key directives were increasing the amount of love. Obviously, there was KPIs that you can tie to all of that. But a lot of the things were more in the intangible realm. With that, you could potentially see over the years being able to connect the best for people, being able to help people build the best relationships. We could see the actual numbers on that front, also pointing to whether we are succeeding on that one dimension, which is not the only obviously dimension that we care about. There are various other dimensions, but that is a super important dimension to care about, which is the case that we are going to try to make in this conversation. We think of this as a great filter moment for our species. What happens when life becomes ever more easier? Post-AGI, post-scarcity in the next 10 years, we'll have no struggles. Everything will be super easy. And for a huge chunk of, not a huge chunk, but for a relatively significantly sized chunk of the population, people living in Europe, North America, etc., life is super easy compared to, again, our ancestors. And some people might say that, things are so difficult, etc., etc. I'm saying relative to utopia, obviously, nothing's perfect. But again, the case that we're making is that life is super easy. And yet, some of the numbers, for example, Japan and Korea for that matter, two of the most advanced societies, and they face catastrophic birth rates. Korea, for example, South Korea, is projected to lose 97% of its population within the next 3 generations if it keeps on its current birth rate trajectory. That is damning. I didn't even know how to make sense of those numbers. Japan is projected to lose half its population before the end of the century. China is projected to do the same. A lot of Ukraine, Romania, Poland, Spain, Italy, Greece, a lot of nations are projected to lose shed half the population before the century's out. So things are pretty dire. And some people might say that, Earth's been carrying too many people. It's, we've been overpopulated. It's not a big issue. We're going to make a case for why this is a big issue. This is not just a canary in the coal mine. This is actually a very big issue right now. And we'll talk about some of those. The argument that we are overpopulated, that's a red herring. But people who make the argument, they lack imagination. Simple as that. Sorry, I just don't have patience for such ridiculous arguments. So we'll address that too. The thing that you want to think about is what happens. Do people still choose to have kids? Having kids, having families, having long-term relationships comes with sacrifices, difficulties, all of that. Would people still choose that? Because these things provide enduring sources of meaning compared to, the alternative, right? And again, for a lot of people, that might be the right way. I'm just saying societally, we do know that investing in long-term relationships, that is the recipe for having a good life, having a great life. But many people are choosing to opt out of that. Why is that the case? There are lots of reasons. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of reasons. I'm going to touch upon a few that are super relevant for this discussion and are overlooked in these discussions. So one of those is the quality of the fit between people. Now, again, as we have said countless times, most of the matching between people is pretty random, right? When someone finds someone just above their threshold, they decide to get into a relationship, but there are different thresholds. So the threshold that this person passed, that was enough to get into a relationship, but that was not enough for the other person to believe that, oh, this person is just so great, I can't, wait to give them all of my love, can't wait to open up my heart, right? People are not willing to open up and love as deeply as they would want to. Because most people don't find that kind of love, where they feel that their paramour deserves that kind of love, in a manner of speaking. This also creates a side effect of if people are not able to find their best fit partners and their soulmates, essentially, they would also not have the desire, because at this point, having kids is super optional. Once that becomes optional, back in the day, it was not. Look, most people had to have kids, and had to have kids from an evolutionary perspective. Most kids would die, and it was just societally conditioned. Now it's the opposite. In this world, why would someone choose to have kids when it's a difficult choice? And related to the point I'm making, could connecting the best fit people who are super happy with themselves and with their relationships, would connecting those two people organically create, is this birth rate crisis kind of connected to the randomness of matching? That is a thesis, and I've never seen this thesis anywhere else, but that's a thesis that we've been running with. Just a core thesis that if you get happy people who've got a great self-relationship, and who also have the relationship skills to build amazing relationships with other people, if you get two of those people who are soulmate level together, then you're going to see a lot more people wanting to have families. Simply because having families is more of an expansive choice. Expansive, not expensive. Expansive. It's almost like an emblem of the love. And you can be poetic about it and wax metaphorical about it endlessly, and probably we will on some podcasts. But for now, keeping it on the very straight and narrow, we believe that connecting the best with people solves this organically more than anything else that governments might do, like giving money to people, because again, it does not solve the meaning problem. It does not solve the desire problem. So the best matchmaker, which is what we're building, and the best relationship body, which is again designed to help you build the best relationships, with those in tune and with you having your perfect person with you. And because people have this deep innate need of sharing their love and contributing to people, being of service to people. And there's most powerfully latent when it comes to our own kids, or potentially our own kids. Like that desire gets ignited when people have kids. You hear that all the time. When people have kids, they're like, I didn't even know I had this part in me, this part of my being, and having my kids open this part up, right? You hear that so often, and it's become it's just become a cliche, but there's a fundamental truth. Cliches are obviously truthful in a lot of ways. This is the fundamental truth that if you, again, get two people together who are happy, who have amazing self-relationships and amazing relationship with each other because they're soulmate quality, you're going to see a lot more people wanting to have kids, just because having kids is the way to express their love and to be of service to people. One of the other underrated reasons for why people might not be choosing to have kids, have families, is a quality mismatch. people have higher requirements, higher expectations of their partners, as should be the case. But for most people, relatively, do not cross the bar. And when that happens, which is also related to the last point, by the way, but this is more tangible. When this happens, again, people would not want to have kids. But what if Elinity also makes people... I want to be very careful about saying expressing the sentiment that I'm going to express, but people are not the best partners that they could be for other people. Right? So this is simple. It's just so... You couldn't deny that. What if with Elinity we could help people be better partners, be more mindful, be more emotionally intelligent, be more empathetic, be all of the things that they would want to do, but life gets in the way. That, history, there are traumas, patterns that they might have picked from the parents and all surroundings and all of that all of those things get in the way. What if Elinity could undo a lot of that, most of that, all of that stuff, and help people just be the best partners that they can be and turn up as the best partners? Again, that would we believe that would substantially increase the desire for people to want to start something of their own. The question to ask, and I've been seeing some numbers being thrown around, like Ukraine as a nation because of the war with Russia, and a lot of people leaving. Ukraine doesn't have a future. Same with Korea. They just don't have enough people to keep going as a civilization. I mean, if you see 97%, 96%, 90%, that kind of reduction in population in 3 generations, right? At what point does it become existential? At what point, forget about the existential part of it, because if you're just looking at it at that point, you're already way too late. But at what point you need to start considering that this is a serious problem that needs serious attention? And only in the last 2, 3, 4 years have I started seeing some attention being paid to this issue, but not enough, nowhere close to enough. But we got to ask ourselves that at what point does this really become super concerning? The thing about birth rates, negative exponentials just as positive exponential, they can get away really, really fast. They can get out of hand. And we're so bad with exponentials that we just don't know where we are, right, in terms of the trajectories. Same with ASI, singularity. We just got no idea the rate of transition, the rate of change that's about to almost happen. It's not going to be done intentionally. This is literally, once you let an ASI and HEI loose in the world, a lot of the things that are going to happen are going to be out of your own volition and control. And a lot of sociological effects and phenomena are also in that bucket. Fertility rates, birth rates being one of them. I mean, China has been trying to do the damages. It's an authoritarian country and they've been failing miserably. Singapore, not so many, but a few countries have tried to at least reverse the trend lines, but to no avail. Because it's just so... Well, this is not a money problem. This is not anything of that. So this is a meaning problem. This is more of a cultural operating system problem. And so you got to look at it from the very bottom. You can't, just fix the symptoms and hope that it gets better. No, you got to look at the root cause. We're just so bad at looking at the longer term, second order effects of where our choices, right, individually and as a species, as civilization. The question that we got to get really, at the point that having kids, having more humans becomes optional, we got to ask ourselves, why should we even have more humans? What's the point? Up until now it was a compulsion, right? We are just evolutionary wired to have kids and propagate. And that's a good enough reason, starting point. But as we transcend our biology and our evolution, we got to be more thoughtful about what exactly is the grand goal, the long-term vision of where our species is heading, our civilization is heading towards, that makes us care about having more kids and having families and all of that stuff, right? Good stuff. And for a lot of people, this is answered through religion, For example, Christianity says that having kids and propagating all of that, that's great. So yeah, people get answers from that. But for a lot of people, they obviously are not going to get, there's no clear answer. And so what happens to that group, which is becoming an ever larger group? Then AGI could potentially put an end to all religions. Yes, I could potentially. I don't know. I've got some thoughts on the implications of ASI on religions, but that's for another time. So why do we believe that, apart from the existential reasons, there is a chance that things could really spiral out of control, but we are not even going that far to say why we need to fix this. This is a symptom of a lot of people not having hope in the future, because investing in the future where having a family is a choice, and investing in a family is a sign that you believe in this beautiful future for your kids, for your family, for yourself. And a lot of people don't have that belief, that hope anymore. But even beyond that, our fundamental belief is that consciousness is a fundamental good. Love, this beautiful human thing, is the most beautiful thing in the universe. And the universe is empty, bleak, devoid of life as far as we know. And it should be a duty to imbue this universe with meaning and with love and with consciousness. And the universe is a playground. We should fill it up with all of the joy, all of the colors, all of the vividity and beauty of the human being. And we've got such an expanse, such a massive cosmos. We're talking of, our own solar system could easily hold 10 trillion, 100 trillion humans at 10x better quality of life compared to today, 100x for that matter. When you talk of structures like O-rings and colonizing planets like Mars and Venus, terraforming Venus and all of that. So it's there for the taking. And we at some point, this has to become, right now it's wired in us that having kids is good because, propagation of species. Again, that's a good starting point. But at some point, we need to be more ambitious in our long-term thinking and imbue this deep philosophical truth that humans are the best thing about the universe. Without us, the universe does not have any meaning as far as we know. There's no other alien species. There's no consciousness as far as we know without us that can appreciate the magnificence and look on with awe at this beautiful cosmos. Then there's a religious question. If God exists, then he'd want us to be fruitful and multiply. And if he doesn't, then our very innate desires and drives to explore and to plant our flag and to just spread more love and spread more beauty and imbue the world with, not just our world, our planet, but beyond, with more humans, with more human things, including humans. That's such a foundational thing that unless something happened on the technological, on the cultural side, like, we went to a techno-feudalistic timeline where people just don't have any desires, unless things of that nature happen. If you remove the obstacles, we'd want to do this naturally. We'd want to go forth and multiply. And that's what we were trying to do, remove the obstacles. And despite our deep love of nature, we plan to start this project called Flourishing to seed more life, non-human life on the planet, and to turn more and more of the planet into lush forests. That's our prime directive with that. Despite that, we believe that our planet itself can carry a lot more humans, 20 billion easily. And the way we can do that is if we adopt Dutch standards of growing food, and at some point in the very near future, artificial meat is going to be a thing. It's going to be better taste-wise and all of the different things that people look for in meat, such that it's going to replace meat, animal meat. And when you get all of these vertical farms, and once you get all of these technologies together, and genetic engineering of crops and all of that, then you can grow enough food on 5% of our current agricultural land for 20 billion people. at American standards. It's eminently possible. So, yeah, the Earth can carry a lot more people, for sure. And having more humans is just not, it's not just an abstract thing. Imagine a world where everyone's got an amazing teacher, personal teacher, coach, a mentor, nurse, all of that, everyone, for every single person. I'm not talking of AI companions in these roles. I'm talking of, because humans would still want to engage in some of these activities, even in the post-scarcity world. So imagine that. Imagine the level of connections. Imagine the possibilities in that world. I want to touch upon the theme of optionality. A lot of people, I already touched upon this, but I'll just elaborate a bit more on this. A lot of people want to have kids, but they are just not able to find the right people, or find the right person that they'd want to actually deeply want to start a family with. One of our meta themes of our civilization has been providing more and more optionality. But this optionality doesn't always come with a better quality in terms of the options. For example, dating apps, they made the option pool open for dating, for dates and partners, but it didn't necessarily improve the quality of the relationships. What needs to shift is the quality, optionality. And that, again, that if you do that, we solve most of the biggest issues, because this, a lot of women, a lot of men too for that matter, they want to have families, but they're just not able to. Think about all of the happiness left on the table, all of the joy, all of the love left on the table. We want to help these people. A lot of people also, because they are so desperate to have families, they decide to get into a relationship where the person might not have crossed the entire threshold, not have crossed all of the thresholds, just enough that they would be like, okay, they have deemed this person, the former person would have deemed this person good enough. And that ends up being one of the biggest reasons for a lot of marriages falling apart, a lot of relationships falling apart, because it just wasn't the right match, but desperation to have a family made that relationship happen. And this brings me to one of our favorite metaphors that we use in our company, the n-dimensional person. We've got so many layers, so many dimensions to us, our values, temperaments, our personalities, our beliefs, all of these different threads. And most people are not able to find someone who's there's no such thing as a perfect puzzle fit, but you do at least want to find someone who's the best fit for your particular puzzle fit. Most people are not able to. If you do that, you solve, again, the second order effects, the third order effects of being able to find the right people are so enormous. I can't even predict some of those. And I'm so excited to see what some of those are. And certainly, we also want to help people know how to settle for suboptimal outcomes just because they wanted something so dearly that they were willing to settle. We don't want that to happen. We want people to have the very best of what they can have. There are a couple of meta themes on this topic. It's a very politicized conversation. Now, we are moral relativists in many ways, and so we don't take a fundamental position on, for individuals, on this thing being a good, like someone who believes in the message of Christ might say that every person should do this. We don't really have an approach like that. What we believe in, at the very core, is the inherent beauty and awesomeness of human life and human consciousness. And we also realize that there's a path to having more of that if we remove the barriers and the obstacles. And that's what we are trying to do. So we don't even wade into the political, the philosophical conversations around the topic. And that can get very murky very quick. Personally, I don't even get why natalism is a controversial topic. Because from any perspective, unless you're a degrowther, and we can forgive those misguided, ignorant souls. I was once a degrowther, so I read this book and got into the degrowth philosophy, and so as a matter of necessity, as an aside. And if you're taking that position, then I can understand why this could be a controversial position, that having more kids. But from a liberal perspective, from a conservative perspective, having at least a replacement level of birth rates, like that's an absolute necessity, like the core. The goal should be to, from a liberal perspective, what can we do on the societal level, removing the obstacles, and from a conservative perspective, what can we do on the individual level? Again, just looking at the broad tones of these philosophical movements. So both of those, again, just distributing in the population on and those two terms is a simple model of thinking. This just should not be a controversial topic. It shouldn't be at all. Because at a minimum, we need like a replacement level. And in many places of the world, we don't have anywhere close to replacement levels of humans. And replacement is so clinical and so sterile. Forget about the term replacement, which is like the bare minimum. But from a liberal perspective, you'd want there to be more beauty. You'd want there to be people enjoying the fruits of their labor and people just enjoying stuff. From a conservative perspective, let's go forth and multiply. That's the message. So I really don't get why this is controversial. There's also been an evolution of the change of rationale in the reasons for having kids. Back in the day, it used to be about survival. It used to be our evolutionary conditioning. As we transcend our evolutionary conditioning, our conditions, it's going to be more about love, more about consciousness, more about just having more of us, because having more of us is the best thing in the universe. There's just, humans are a moral good, absolute moral good. Simple as that. For some time it was about intelligence maxing, but now it's all about consciousness maxing. We don't necessarily need more Einsteins now that we've got ASI on the horizon, but we definitely want to have more humans, just because humans can uniquely, at least for the next 10 years, enjoy the very beauty of the awesome cosmos. So I'll end on what can be done and what we are planning to do to address this issue. We believe that solving those two core problems, solving the best fit connection problem, so getting soulmate quality people together and helping people build amazing relationships, it goes a long way. It possibly could solve the problem in its entirety, because our current, it could solve it in its entirety. So we don't even need any other solutions. We don't need financial, handouts and stuff. AGI is going to take care of a lot of financial reasons why people choose not to have kids. But we are going to solve biology pretty soon, such that women won't take such a huge toll of carrying a child and delivering a child. So a lot of those, I wouldn't even want to call them small issues, because they are pretty massive. A lot of women have the risk of even losing their own lives if they were to try to have a child. So these are pretty massive. That's a small number, but a lot the toll of having a child, carrying a child for 9 months and delivering a child, it's permanent, takes a huge toll on the woman's body. So a lot of these things are going to be solved. But at the core of it is a meaning problem. And if you get people who love each other and who just have a deep love for the future and deep hope for the future and a deep self-relationship, they would want to, many of those people would want to the degree that we probably are going to see birth rates of 3, 4, 5 over the next decade or so as an average around the world, such that we can get to billions of people on Mars, billions of people on Moon, billions of people living in O-rings. So yeah, that's our hope, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for the time. A couple of things before I go. One of the things that we are planning to actually work on, already create some plans for this, is work with some governments. Japan, South Korea, Ukraine, Russia for that matter, post-Putin Russia, of course. Because Russia has got some dire demographics. Oh boy. And, a lot of people are looking at Russia as a pariah. This is Russian leadership, right? Like most people, they're good people. It's the leadership that sucks balls. And hopefully they're going to go the way of the Iranian leadership, and we're going to have a utopia. That's a hope. Anyways, so we plan to work with a lot of governments and embed these solutions deep. Chinese government, for that matter, I don't know how that might work, because they desperately need something of this sort, and they could potentially build something of this sort for their own country. But if we do build the best technology, it might make sense to work with them to deploy this for them, and obviously, they'll have the data and all of that. But we plan to do a lot of the work with the governments to embed these solutions. I was talking with someone for some time who's super interested in what we are working on, and he's actually going to work with us in many capacities. And he was saying that one of your core missions, in a way, Elinity could end up saving humanity. So that's been like a running joke when you talk about this particular theme. So what I'll say is that we will do our very best, because this is a massive issue. It's not about the symptoms, it's not about the top line numbers, it's about what this indicates. And we want to have a world where people love deeply, and people can love deeply. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'll catch you later.